any final changes? I only see one thing from the last review. And that was on the top page 35. And but it should say, after Public Works, similar to, previous page 33. After Public Works, we say, DPW superintendent or district. That's the only thing I found is, just anybody else in their review of the company and, nothing else, Bill, nothing, Jeff, nothing. So, I did ask Jim in a conversation in the past year, should we go ahead and send this to the county and let them review it, but ultimately, the county emergency, operations manager, if you wanna call him that, he has to sign this, and the question is, do we give him a draft and say, go ahead and review it and send it back to us, or do we, if we're done, this is our finished document, we sign it, send it in, and let them do what they're gonna do. I don't know if there's anything,
My advice is the latter. Approve it as a board, sign it, and send it in.
And I will note that when the county emailed me for an update, they were very excited that I told them it was gonna be approved tonight.
oh, okay.
I got a yay.
Yeah, you had some discussions with the county also, and we're not alone, there's a lot of them there.
No, I thought I was a pretty bad student, and evidently I'm not holding. So I think that we're ahead of the game and, yeah, no, I mean, I would make only motion, I'll approve it, send it down.
Yeah, we have a motion and a second, discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to thank Chad for his amount of work on this.
No, and I also wanna make a comment too, and Gene helping us, get that together, we really appreciate it, this is a pretty big plan, there was, and everybody, the chief and Todd and everybody meeting, all taking the time to meet. A little more extensive than what we thought at the very beginning, but I think it turned out pretty good, so.
I do too, and, again, you're the emergency government CEO, and when you got that title, you go, well, what the heck is that?
Yep.
And there wasn't much going on, and of course, well, you go with, okay, and they got back on it and said, where is it? And we jumped right on it, and I think we got it done pretty quick, so.
Lieutenant Rollins doing a good job, I've gotten many more emails, and COVID was a big deal, there hadn't been much going on in quite a while, but that ball is rolling again, so.
Okay,
Chad, any idea if the county's planning for follow-up exercises, tabletops, scenarios to go run through?
I have not,
Training on the-
there is training, there is so much training that gets sent to me, unfortunately, like, I have not made any, but it's all over the board, I mean, I think anything that's available for training, Lieutenant Roland is sending that out to everybody. Unfortunately, a lot of that stuff is during the day, like if most people, I still have work, so.
it's good.
Yeah.
All right, we have a motion and a second. On the motion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, none, motion carries 5-0. You don't have to authorize me to sign it, but tonight, all of us are gonna sign it. Five signatures on here, and we did it today, so we'll be done with that.
And I'll make that change to it and just change that page.
Yeah, for one page, nobody else, everything else, so you should be good. Okay, next item, approve RFP for police garage. We kind of morphed this deal a little bit here, after discussion with, some contractors, and looking at the, Village of Eagles Police, Administration Building garage. And, kind of come to the conclusion that we could probably, and most likely, get a better bang for the buck by going to the design build, method of delivery of this project versus the, design bid build. It is just a matter of delivery, we still get the same product, but we also went to a post-frame construction. And I was a little bit leery of that until I looked at a couple of these buildings, including touring one at Eagle. And they were called pole buildings in the past. You can't make that differentiation by looking at these at all, inside or outside, at all. And we can definitely, after, the police, staff all looked at this and were part of the, floor plan and some of the specific building requirements. Obviously, we're gonna get, the board will get a kick at this, but we're gonna probably have a lot of interest in this. I don't know how many you talked to, Todd, at least half a dozen more?
Right now, I've talked to 9 contractors and there are 9 that wanna take it on.
Okay.
And that's just by phone calls, that's before it's even going out.
Yeah, so this will get, some
Yeah.
serious traction, you know, and I'm not quite sure, you know, I mean, interest rates are rising, building costs are coming down. This is the last thing on our campus to have a 25-year fix, we don't have the 75, but we have the 25, maybe 30. And this will take care of any of those major investments in this property. All is good. So the last changes were really minor that I had, shared with Todd and Jim and Kim, and that was, in the title page, there was one issue, or what we called it.
Yeah.
Open
Those were
up,
all made and everybody got a new copy tonight.
okay, so the last change were just, the first page is just,
Detail and
instead of open up the design build, no, it's in the design build contract. And then construction administration can be by the contractor, it's gotta be by the owner, so we have that on page 4, number 4, it's by owner. And a lot of this is gonna be Todd and I, if we think we're gonna need any additional help, we'll certainly, go get it. But, this has a good chance of being more hands-on in the job than probably ever did. So that'll be good. And then the other thing I added on page 4 under D, where Jim added, you know, all the applicable state codes, I added the sentence, contractor responsible for all project superintendents, just to ensure that the contractor knows that there's no contact that really occurs from our town to subcontractors in any way, shape, or form. It goes to the prime contractor, period.
What item, Joe?
Pardon me?
What item?
4D, you added the
Okay.
sentence.
That's 3D.
page 4.
Yeah, but it was 4D. Yeah. It was in 3D again.
Oh, that got,
Yeah, that's all. Stop.
you got it?
Fourth line.
Alright, and the last thing was I just, it was really a grammatical deal on page 6, fee proposal, the town may request, not my request. Again, sure that one is in there.
For 4.01 selection.
Under fee proposal. Four, fee proposal, the town may request, second sentence, the third
Oh.
sentence, town may request. Previously it was just MLI, spelled out for the
Yeah, we got
Well,
And Jim and Carl kicked at it, Kim had, I had, Todd looked at it, and again, a lot of this is, with help from, you know, other contractors that responded to previous RFPs, and most of the people that are doing this, that's the majority of their work. Okay.
I do have some
Oh, yeah,
words.
dates.
Again, I missed, I'm told that we authorized him to look at this, but apparently he's done it. The 1.03, the schedule of events. I don't think the RFP is gonna be issued today yet. Technically, right? Tomorrow at the earliest.
Would it be put out there,
Yeah.
right?
But in my experience working with proposals, I would give them, maybe a week or 10 days at the most to submit questions, because the way we have it here, we're not gonna give them the answers to the questions until April 7th, and then they have to submit their proposal by April 10th, which is Easter weekend. So they need more time with the questions and answers to finalize their proposal. So I would suggest changing like the deadline for questions to like March 1st or I don't know, next Friday or 24th.
It's that Friday and then questions can be addressed.
the 24th.
the
24th.
24th for the
Okay.
deadline for questions, and then we need to send out the responses by that March
We can get our
31st.
answers sooner than
Yeah, so the first.
as soon as we can.
Everybody-
That's
April
it.
first instead of seven.
So the first
March
line,
31st, I think would be the Friday.
So change the first one to March 14th, second one to March 24th, third one to March 31st.
right, you have to give them 10 days to finalize the proposal.
But it's already, oh.
Okay, and I would ask
For 2 weeks.
further that Todd, with the people that you talk to, go ahead and give them a call and just tell them, hey, it's out there. I mean, if you already told them the date, fine, if you didn't,
Yeah, they've already wanted me to give them stuff and I'm like, yeah, I can't do that.
Well, that's the other thing that's
Yeah.
important, that once an RFP is issued, we do not answer questions verbally. We probably shouldn't have contacted them in the first place, because that's the point of the written Q&A, is that all of the respondents have the same information, and we can prepare an apples for apples proposal.
correct.
That's my concern, the only concern on the design and build. Or, that we're gonna have to make sure we really look at those proposals, because they may propose different options, and so we're not necessarily gonna be comparing apples to apples, so maybe we can't automatically go with a low cost bid. And that needs to be documented, because I think state procedures, if you put out a proposal, you gotta do the low cost bid, but we gotta show that there's differences in quotes.
In a minute, we give them a target number that does then open the door for them to propose their own efficiencies. And you have to say what those are, I mean, you have to say what you have.
And when I talked to the contractors, I just gave them, we have a basic floor plan, this is the size, are you interested? I didn't give them any specifics except that.
But they do know it's a post-frame construction.
Yeah.
Well, they will once they get this bad boy.
Yeah.
It's right there.
Yeah. So, those changes that made, I'd have to come in here tomorrow morning, as soon as they're done, I do have a meeting in Milwaukee. In the middle of the day sometime, so as soon as it's available, I'll shoot it over there.
Did you
Or
change
just come in the
the
morning.
deadline for when the answers are given too?
I think Gene was down, right?
March 31st, yeah.
And then
I don't
there,
have control of that right now.
did we fill in 5.03 as, are the questions, and I go, who are the questions for? Oh, that's for them to submit.
Yeah, when they submit,
Contractor.
you have to say who we can contact,
Yeah.
that's establishing their communication.
And they're submitting the questions to,
The bids come to, yeah, the questions come to me. Contact with probably Todd or Jim. Okay, that's where we're at, I think,
You need a motion to approve it?
we need a motion to approve the RFP as presented,
No, with
The
modifications.
changes.
and we'll list those changes.
March, the RFP issued March 14th, deadline for questions, March 24th, and Q&A emailed participants, March 31st.
Make sure Mark's got the one day.
It does.
Okay, and there was no other change?
Well, there's spelling
That one?
on 3D, page 4.
She doesn't like how you spell superintendent, so.
Yes, no.
Because he spelled it incorrectly.
Oh, you mean my notes? My handwritten notes?
I didn't see any that I was drawing,
Oh,
can make all the changes, but that's spelled out.
okay, I think that's good. All right, so we have a motion, do we have a second?
I don't think we have a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve, including the corrections for the request for proposal for the professional design build services for the town of East Troy Police Garage Building.
I'll second.
All right, Chad, a second, further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, motion carried. Very good. Again, all right, next item on the agenda is, agreements with Wisconsin and Village of East Troy for State Highway 20 project. And, then we authorized, meeting that we had with the, I think it was prior to, the Saturday, right? And, I asked that Jim review both, or we asked that Jim review both of those agreements. One of them is an agreement with the State Department of Transportation, called SMMA, State Municipal Maintenance Agreement. And the other one is a intergovernmental agreement between the town and the village. Back in 2015, the town signed a resolution for conception of Trans 75 for the absence of need. And we didn't want a sidewalk, north side of Highway 20 where the frontage is basically a cemetery. And, everything was good until about a couple months ago, when the village was signing their SMMA, they said, let's put that sidewalk in there anyway. And we'll do an agreement with the town, and we'll take care of it. However, if you have an ordinance that says, you know, when it falls snow, you're gonna do it, or you're gonna attempt to make them do it. And that was all good until we got the state agreement. And the state agreement, again, this is for a sidewalk we didn't want. State agreement makes us responsible for any agreement for snow and ice removal, and of course that would, then our ordinance go back to the property owner, which would be the cemetery. Says, however, town will first seek compliance with the property owner, because we have that. But the state SMMA says the town, and if we don't do it, we could lose GTA, or state transportation aids, says if we don't do it, the following, that could happen: maintain storm sewer, that's a problem, curb and gutter, cut grass, and have a street sweeping program. Cutting the grass is not an issue. The cemetery, maintenance manager or site manager says they cut the grass anyway between the curb and the cemetery fence. They are gonna eliminate the parking lane there, so there'll be more grass, which leads to the second problem. The guy at the cemetery says, well, we don't plow snow in the cemetery. If there's a funeral there, the funeral director hires a guy to dig the grave and somebody to plow the roads. So they don't plow roads, but if they had to, sounds like they would. They probably don't prefer it, because what happens is you'll get this sand, salt, slush mixture, whatever, blowing or sprayed onto the sidewalk, and then the cemetery has to get rid of it. The only place they really can get rid of it, likely, is towards the cemetery. There's more room there now, but they had a big problem with putting salt on these, you know, monuments, the granites, or whatnot, the concrete base too. So that became the issue of saying, okay, are we gonna sign this, or are we not? So Jim did his research and looking at these two agreements, and I believe he also, got a copy of Brian Roper, who's gonna sign the agreement. Okay, so I guess, let us know what you think about the two agreements, as well as how the discussion was with Brian Roper.
Well, my discussion with Brian Roper, my first question was, what happens if the town doesn't sign a state contract? And his response was that the project might not happen. I don't know whether or not that's likely or not, but that's what I was told. And then when I pointed out certain items of the contract that the town could not implement on its own, for example, the street sweeping program, how to maintain the storm sewer if there's a clog. We don't have a vac truck that I'm aware of. So we'll just get the village to do that for you. Well, okay, well then our intergovernmental agreement with the village has to change to say that they will hold the town harmless for all of the responsibilities of the state contract. And that would be my advice moving forward. You cannot sign the state contract unless the intergovernmental agreement is changed to say, they'll hold us harmless for everything that we're responsible for in the state contract.
I thought we were even gonna almost add it as an addendum. Rather than
Yes.
rewriting the whole thing in the.
Yes,
of the-
and that's
of the
what I
village.
would say.
Okay.
Add it as exhibit A.
If the village is the one that wants the sidewalk and they agree to the responsibilities, we need to make sure it's everything that the state.
Also in number 4, the state contract, 4B, says the municipality will file a parking declaration with the state. When I asked about that, I said, what format would that come in? Is there a mandatory form? He said, oh, no municipality ever does that. I said, well, this is stated as a requirement that we have to do it, so if you're telling me we don't have to do it, strike it.
Why is it in there?
He said, I'll bring that up at my internal meeting that they were having last Wednesday or Thursday, and that I never touched base with them after that meeting.
You'll probably get away with it on that issue, if it has to go to the office of general counsel, it wouldn't happen, but in this case, what you mentioned was, well, you know, that doesn't exist. And in this case, it never would exist because the parking lane is gonna be eliminated, there won't be a parking lane, right? So.
Right.
To have that in there, and again, when they create something like this, everybody's gotta sign it. They don't change anything but a strike based on that conversation. I think that would probably get high with, you know? And like I said, you know, the curb and gutter, we'll probably all be dead before we got anything with that. Same as the storm sewer, other than flooding.
Yes,
Storm
this will be
sewer won't
new,
flood.
so he expected, 25, 30 years before there'd even be any major maintenance.
That would be, the storm sewer itself is probably forever, because it's over designed the way it is. The question would be, like on curb and gutter, if the plows hit it, again, we don't plow that.
Right.
The county does, and they get paid for by the state. This is a state truck highway, it's not a connecting highway. By law, there's no responsibility the town has in this at all, except the change of policy by the DOT that says going forward, what we're doing as a state, we are providing the state trunk highway, nothing else, okay? What about storm sewer? We'll put a ditch in there, you need storm sewer, that's the answer, okay? We'll do that. Street sweeping, God only does it anyway. I don't know, probably in spring there's sand and gutter, right?
Oh yeah, there's all kinds of chunks of blacktop from patching and concrete from chipping out.
Yeah, so there would be, probably an annual,
Yeah.
okay?
And the Walworth County does it once, if not twice a year.
What was coming?
The county does.
Okay, and again, it's their road, and their law is theirs to maintain, but the new policy with the DOT is as much maintenance that they can push it off to someone else, that is their policy. And their definition would be, I'll give you a state truck or a highway, that's pavement, not necessarily curb and gutter, because you could put a ditch there, okay? So that's yours, and that's what they've been doing, so.
So my recommendation is the board not sign it unless the intergovernmental agreement is modified to attach the state contract and say every, item of maintenance that is required of the town is the requirement of the village to do, and hold the town harmless when the town doesn't do it itself.
Does opening the intergovernmental agreement cause Pandora's box?
It's not really being reopened because we never approved, we
This is a
never
new one, brand new.
sent them a signed copy of anything.
No, this is a draft, that's all we have. And again,
That's between us and the village.
correct,
It is.
correct. But,
The village wants it.
yes, so we'll attach,
The village is the one who wants this
Yes.
anyway,
It's
right?
part of the project.
Right. We'll provide the land.
But we have some frontage by the cemetery on Highway 20, that's why we're,
and actually also the Glidden property right at the corner across the street there. We said there's a rentals.
It's a rental, yeah.
But again, we do have an ordinance for plowing snow on sidewalks, even though we don't have
We don't have any.
we don't have any sidewalk. The other option is getting rid of that, but I don't know if that's really a way to go here, kind of sounds.
They're not gonna get, the state doesn't want to get rid of a sidewalk.
No,
With pedestrian and biking, you know, moving to the top of their list over the last 10 years, they're not gonna let us remove a sidewalk from this property.
well, I did talk with a, village, trustee and incoming president about this issue, cause he said, hey, this is out there, and where you at? I actually sent him an email previously, and then I told him, we're meeting today, cause we did authorize you to look at it, and we'll come back. And his initial thoughts were is that, well, we'll just modify the IGA, and if that doesn't sound like it's gonna be a big issue. And really, most of this stuff is probably not a big issue, other than it's for something we didn't want, and it holds us potentially responsible to lose aid.
Right.
That's not a good thing for us. So, I will make that contact, as discussed here tonight, to make that request, and then they'll put out that.
So make a motion.
Do we need to authorize?
So we need to go ahead and discuss a revised intergovernmental agreement with the village of East Troy for the state highway 20 reconditioning.
So moved.
Actually, I just made that motion.
So moved. Second.
Are you just, you're gonna modify it, or we want Jim to modify it?
Well, the only well,
It's their it's theirs, not ours. It's not ours. This was provided to us.
But are we
I
gonna
would probably
send a
have to
red line
review it
response?
after they modify it.
Yes. We could, okay, we have a motion second, for me just to make that contact with the village and say, as discussed at this meeting tonight, we would like you to do the following. And then they will revise their IDA, which would have to then come to us here, and so we don't have any delay here. By the way, I don't think stopping that project is real. It could delay it, and I don't have any part of delaying the state project, so I do think, that should be another motion, so.
That's why I would have, rather than asking them to make changes, we should make the changes that we want, so we don't have to go back and forth, right? They can't read our minds.
Well, we
Tell them-
just stated what we want to do.
tell them this.
Well, when Joe makes the contact to say our board approved that the IGA is going to be modified, and basically, you need to hold the town harmless, not for the, 3 or 4 items, but for everything listed in the state contract. We're going to attach that as an exhibit. That should tell them what we're looking for.
Do we need to authorize you to write that?
That's a
vote?
second,
I think that's
secondary
what Michelle's
motion.
question.
Okay,
Why
still
would
on
we
the,
do it twice?
still on the floor, we have a motion second to, have you authorize me to make that contact and tell them what the discussion, what we want done.
If I may interrupt, my point is, you don't really need me to do anything.
No.
If Joe tells them this is what we'll approve, and that's what they get to us, at the next board meeting, the board on its
Yes.
own can say, yes, we can approve this or not approve it.
And it's their,
I mean,
they put it
I don't even
together.
need to be kept in the loop on this one. Unless it comes back to us saying what we told them it has to say, the town won't approve it.
Alright, so, let's vote on that motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? None. I'd like to make a motion so that there is no potential holdup here, that we authorize Jim upon receipt of this revised IDA, that he reviews it. So there's no holdup, so the next meeting we would be ready, Jim would be ready to discuss this with us. That's my
Second.
motion. Barb, second. Discussion on that motion. We're pre-authorizing Jim to look at something that's not there yet, but when it will be there, he's authorized.
That makes sense.
You good, good on that? Okay, the motion, all in favor, say aye. Aye, opposed? None, good. Okay. Okay, D, Beach Troy Railroad Museum Bridge, that's the Beach Road Bridge, or the railroad right here. We have to authorize Jimmy to review that, and the discussion we had at that meeting is actually Jimmy also, have contact with their attorney to start, getting the language correct here on how we can do this.
Mr. Huff from the village sent
County.
myself and attorney, is that what you said?
From the county,
Office from the county.
Oh, what did I say?
The village.
Oh, sorry, yes, from the county. Sent the town of Lynn contract to myself and Attorney Finke already. Attorney Finke went ahead and changed all the parties' names in that document. But I needed authorization to review and comment. He wanted to know what do I think? I said, well, I have to present it to my board and get further guidance from the board as to when they want this changeover to happen. I think they believe that since you need town ownership for some of the funding out there, they think this is going to happen like immediately.
okay.
And I don't believe that's a timeline you guys.
Chad and Bill were not there, so I'll give a little review on that.
Thank you.
We did have the state, programming engineer, he's the guy that has, control all the purses, from the state as well as the federal government. And we established, even after being told by several sources, that the railroad museum as a nonprofit could obtain, state or federal aid for a public bridge. Doesn't exist. The only way that funding can occur on that bridge, whether it's rehab or replacement, is if it's owned by governmental entity. So that's how we got to the point of, okay, Tom, we're gonna have to, buy it for a dollar or whatever it is, so we own it. That allows us then to, apply, for the two programs that would allow funding of this. If
Now,
it's,
when you said that out loud,
Mhm.
that has to happen in meeting of the electors, correct?
No, we're not purchasing property or land. It's a bridge structure.
buying a bridge,
There's an
That's
exception.
not property.
now here's the deal about that, that makes it a little bit different though. Like I said, there's a sufficiency rating on the bridge of 61.6 at the last, inspection last summer. In order for it to get funding for replacement, it needs to be at 50 or below, and it's deteriorating fast. If it's gonna be replaced, the funding would be 100%. Everything would come, absolutely everything. If it's a rehab, instead of, the 800,000, it's gonna be 250,000, that would be 80%. So the details that Jim is making reference to is, okay, we can agree to buy the bridge, but how do we protect the town that keeps basically the museum, as an owner or a responsible party for the maintenance until it's replaced. Once it's replaced, we already as the board said, if we get a new bridge, we're gonna buy it, because it shouldn't be owned by a nonprofit. It's our road, we have an easement to go over it, that's not good.
Let me address Michelle's question.
Yeah.
Section 60.50, sub 1 and 2, acquisition of land for roads. Acquire lands to build, alter, extend, or repair highways, streets, or alleys in the town. The statute specifies that the acquisition for these purposes is an exception to 60.10, sub 2, sub B, which provides that the town meeting may authorize the town to purchase land for these purposes. But again, we're not even purchasing land.
I just think it should be on the agenda for the April meeting.
Maybe have a report, please.
Section,
We're getting there,
Section,
then.
what is that? But
Right, but I think it's something that the electors should be aware of, because it's gonna incur costs, potentially.
Potentially. We would certainly like to see that.
Right, right, so that's, yeah,
Yeah.
so that was, I will address that when we talk about the agenda.
Beach Road. Okay. All right, so anyway, so we have to authorize Jim to, review what he's got, and then set the table for us of what he's gonna bring to us. We'll have to have a meeting, I'm not sure if that's an open or closed meeting, it's kind of negotiation to a point, but not really. It's gonna be something we'll have to
I'd
address.
have to look to see if there is any exception.
Okay.
None jumps out at me right now.
Great. But the bottom line is, we will not wanna get to the position where this summer or next summer, the county comes out and their responsibility on county level is, they would be the one to post that bridge. I mean, we could do it, but they're the ones that, based on the inspection reports, they're the ones that do it. So they could post the weight limit beyond, which is bad, or it could be closed. That would be absolutely terrible, okay? Especially for where that bridge is in relation to, you know, police here and then getting across I-43 or whatever. So, that's why this is on here, so we need a motion.
Yeah, I just had a quick question. Has any discussion been made about, some emails from a resident that we've gotten about vacations or what that would cost? Was there any discussion then with all of this? I wasn't there.
Yeah, there was, I think, Ben just mentioned that, if you look at where the town parking lot is, and you go out on ES, you stand there, that is, there's a high point on each side, it's a low point on the profile on ES. In other words, it'd be a danger from either eastbound or westbound, so in other words,
What's the
we go
danger
from-
where it is right now by
Well-
the bridge? Look how many people I've been in one myself.
yeah, and that would be more dangerous for two reasons, one, because of sight distance, and number two, no longer you have a crossing section, now you've got two Ts, which is inherently dangerous. So that was an energy drainage issue,
From, Miramar Road or whatever, and I get it.
right?
I just wanna know if it was discussed or.
The
Well,
county
and
guys
the state only talked about funding options for repair or replacement, not relocation and replacement.
Right, and it would not, it would be 100% our cost then, for the
Exactly.
new,
So I think that's a
Well, and
non-starter.
I don't know that you.
But we wouldn't own the
go
bridge.
Through
We wouldn't have to
property
repair it
that was
anymore.
purchased
Repair a
as
road.
forward.
Stewardship
You have
plan.
to build a road, and you're probably gonna cost at least $500,000 to $600,000 just to build a road, which would be dangerous from that.
No,
Plus
that's
all
the
flooding,
questions I
everything
was
else,
asking.
And you
but-
couldn't, you'd have to build it up to get over the railroad.
Yeah, and you probably.
So you'd probably eliminate the dip,
Yeah.
because you'd have to build it up, but you'd have to build up to get over the railroad.
And there's a drainage way through that same location that goes from the.
So the answer was, yeah, we talked about it.
The state
Thank
guy
you.
did talk about it, he said he didn't want to mention it, but it's only that idea.
It's a bad.
Yeah.
Safety does come first.
I mean, before they were hydro.
Okay. Appreciate it.
Okay, so is someone making the motion?
Yeah, we need a motion. D.
What documents are you asking to review, Jim?
The contracted attorney Finke drafted,
Which is what?
Motion to authorize Jim to review the contracts from Attorney Finke relative to the electric railroad and bridge issue before this board.
One second.
Michelle, second, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
I,
Aye. Opposed? None, motion carried. Okay,
fine,
Okay.